At the time that this happened, I was 14. I was never a big fan of Christmas, mostly because it meant my entire family came to my house. We always brought my cousins, grandparents, uncles and aunts. The house was just filled up every Christmas. I mostly just stayed in my room while the rest played board games downstairs. I wasn't really the very social type of kid. On the night before Christmas, I remember sitting in my bed watching some YouTube videos. Don't remember precisely what I was watching, but it kept me entertained. At around 7 o'clock, when it was already very dark outside, I heard something, or someone, knock on my window. I was wearing my earphones, so it was definitely a loud sound. Now, this was sinister since my room was on the second floor. I stood up and opened the window, which led to my backyard. Empty. No one out there. I sat back down on my bed, as I probably thought it was some bird that accidentally hit my window. Some minutes passed, and I heard it again. This time it was much clearer. A straight knock on my window. Now I knew someone was messing with me. I again stood up, went to my window, and opened it. And again, no one was out there. I was pretty sure this was one of my elder cousins playing a joke on me. It wouldn't be the first time they did a prank on me. I decided to sit back down on my bed, but this time without my earphones so I could hear the next knock better. For the next half hour, I didn't hear anything. Soon, I heard my mom shout from downstairs. She told me dinner was ready. I quickly went downstairs where all my family was. It felt like a circus, to be honest. I saw my elder cousins in one of the sofas, talking to each other. I wasn't going to confront them about it, because if I did then that would mean I probably got scared and they'd laugh at me about it. I quickly ate the chicken and mashed potatoes, of course leaving the peas and carrots since I didn't like vegetables. I decided to head back to my room and continue watching videos or texting my friends. While I was walking up the stairs to my room, I felt a cold breeze. This was awkward. All the radiators were on, so I didn't know where this could be coming from. Then, I realized. I rushed back to my room. When I opened the door, I almost fainted in fear. I saw my window wide open, letting in all the cold from the outside. This meant that someone I didn't know had just been in my room, while I was downstairs eating. Whoever was in here left my room a mess. The bed sheets were on the floor and the drawers were all left open. It seemed like someone was trying to find something and was in a rush. I went downstairs immediately, almost crying on the way. I told my mom, panicking, and she called the police. Everyone was in shock. My dad went to the backyard to see if there was still anyone out there. When the police arrived, they searched the entire house and found nothing. They informed us that someone indeed had broken into my room. They said that this someone probably used a ladder, or something of that sort, to get through my unlocked window. We never found out who that was, and I always make sure my window is fully locked every night. My name is Jeff. I'm a 23-year-old male, and at the time of writing this, I currently work at a 7-Eleven in downtown Ohio. This happened during Christmas, which makes it all the more horrifying, since it's meant to be a happy time where nothing creepy should happen. I was working the night shift, which starts at around 10 o'clock and ends at 3 in the morning. Usually, there weren't many customers after midnight, and when there were, most of them were either drunk, high, or gave bad vibes. Even at Christmas, it was mostly empty. That night, I was on my phone. It was around 1 a.m. The store was completely empty, so I just played some games on my phone to help pass the time faster. Then, I heard the automatic doors open. I didn't think much about this and just continued on my phone. After maybe 15 or 20 minutes, I realized that whoever entered was still in the shop, since I didn't hear the automatic doors close. This is when I got skeptical. The store was in complete silence too, so it's not like whoever was in here was still looking for something. That's when I decided to shout out, "Hello? Is anybody there?" No response. Now I was actually getting kinda creeped out. I got up and walked to the toys aisle. Nobody was there. So I walked to the Christmas decoration aisle. Still, no one was there. I was extremely confused. But just then, I heard something fall over in one of the aisles near me. It was in the beauty section. I slowly walked towards that aisle, asking if anybody was there on the way. That's when someone finally responded. It was a man with a very deep voice. He said that he was okay and didn't need help. He said he just dropped something accidentally. This entire situation was very strange. Something wasn't right. He sounded anxious, like if he was trying to cover up something. I didn't know what to do. The closer I got the aisle he was in, the stranger everything got. Why would a man be at the beauty section in a 7-Eleven in the middle of the night? That's when I decided enough was enough. I ran towards the aisle he was in, to see who this was. That's when I almost fell to the floor in horror. There was a homeless-looking man, crouched down in the corner of the aisle, smiling at me. It was nothing other than horrifying. I screamed like a little girl as I left the store and got into my car. I locked the doors and drove away to the nearest gas station. I know that was a very immature and irresponsible thing, knowing that that man could steal everything in the store, but I needed to prioritize my life. Once in the nearest gas station, I called the police and explained everything. After half an hour, they informed me that lots of things had been stolen, and there was a pocket knife found at one of the deeper aisles. When my boss found out, he got extremely angry at me for leaving the store, and even almost fired me. I still work at the same store, and nothing like this has ever happened to me again. Every night, I still wonder, what were those man's intentions that night? This happened last Christmas, just before my 26th birthday. I'm a male from South Carolina, and just to add some context, at the time of writing this I lived alone. So this happened on Christmas Eve. The day you wouldn't expect anything like this to happen. It was around 5 o'clock when I got home from the park. I was with my group of friends playing basketball, just to stay fit and in shape. I sat on the couch in the living room, which was next to the kitchen. The living room also had a big door that led to the basement. My house was relatively big, especially for someone who lived alone. This is because it was previously owned by my granddad, who unfortunately died a couple years ago. Anyway, back to the story. As I was sitting on the couch, I noticed a cold breeze coming from upstairs. Even though I was exhausted, I pulled myself together and walked up the stairs. Apparently, the guest bedroom's door was open, so I went inside. That's when I saw the window wide open. This is when everything got strange. At the time I didn't worry too much about this, since the cleaning lady came twice a week to clean the house. She probably left it open accidentally while I was outside. I went back downstairs and that was that. A couple of hours later, I went to my parents' house where almost my entire family was, to celebrate Christmas Eve. Nothing strange or unusual happened there. In fact, it was just as boring as every year. We ate the turkey, played some board games and watched a childish Christmas movie that my younger cousins chose. When the clock hit 11 o'clock, and most my cousins and family members had already gone back to their homes, I decided it was time to do the same. I thanked my parents for the meal and got in my car. I drove for about 15 minutes before I finally got home. As soon as I entered, I had a strange sensation. I really don't know how to describe it, but it felt as if I was being watched. At the time I probably thought it was an effect from the alcohol from the dinner, so I dismissed it. I got ready for bed, and by 12 I was already asleep. Being half drunk definitely helped make me fall asleep faster. I woke up in the middle of the night. My head felt very heavy, and I was sweating a lot, like I'd just run a marathon. I looked at the clock and it marked 3 a.m. I know this sounds cliché, but I felt like someone was watching me. I tried to go back to sleep, trying different positions, but nothing worked. I decided to head downstairs and get a glass of water, to ease up my mind. The squeaky stairs didn't help make me any more comfortable. When I got to the kitchen, the vast darkness filled my mind. I turned on the light. I quickly grabbed a glass, filling it up with freezing cold water from the tap. When I drank it entirely, I put the glass back and turned off the light. Just before going back upstairs, I noticed something that almost made my heart drop. The basement door was wide open. The darkness inside it filled my body with fear. This definitely wasn't the cleaning lady. She promised to never go into the basement. That's when I remembered the wide open window from earlier. I put the pieces together and realized what was happening. And just then, just in that very moment, I heard the floor above me gently squeak, as if someone accidentally stepped on one of the floorboards. My heart started racing. I grabbed the keys to my car and main door. The tension and suspense building up didn't help me unlock the main door very quickly, but I still managed to open it and run to my car at maximum speed. When I got into my car, I drove at full tilt to my parents' house, hoping no one would follow me. Indeed, no one did, but all I could think of was, who could possibly have been in the house with me? When I got to my parents' house, I knocked and pounded on their door like a madman until my dad opened it. I was so scared I could hardly form words, but he somehow understood me and called the police. I'll skip to when the police arrived. 2 police cars went to investigate and search my house. After an hour of waiting, they got back to my parents' house, and informed us all that there was food and blankets found in my basement, meaning that it's possible someone had been living down there for maybe a week. All of this was too much for me to handle. I vomited on the floor without control, as I couldn't believe what they were saying. I moved out of there the next day, and I now live in the city center, in a small apartment with a roommate. The police never found out who was at my house that day.
This is, without a doubt, the most disturbing thing that's ever happened to me. To preserve my identity, I'll remain anonymous. The only details you need to know are that I'm a female, and that this happened when I was only 10 years old. It was the day before Christmas, just before 4 o'clock I think. My family and I were at the mall. We were having a great time. My older brother spotted one of the multiple men dressed up as Santa. He pointed at him. It was that typical cliché Christmas thing, where a man dressed as Santa would pose and take a picture with children for the family to keep. My mom decided it would be nice if we took a picture with him. Personally, I never liked doing this. Despite being 10 years old, I knew these men weren't the actual Santa, and I found it uncomfortable since I didn't know them. But my brother really wanted to, and my mom insisted on doing it, so I accepted. We quickly got there, where the man was already posing with other kids as their parents took a photo of them. After a minute or two, it was our turn. Since I was the smaller sibling, I had to sit on the man's lap, while my brother just stood next to him smiling for the picture. The man was nicer to us than I expected it. He was almost too sweet with us, smiling and trying to make us giggle too much. Since I was only an innocent 10-year-old at that time, I actually liked the man. After my dad was finally able to take the picture, the man dressed as Santa gave me a high five and told me I was awesome. My dad showed me the picture and that was that. Except, not really. Around an hour later, my dad and brother were playing air hockey in the game arena. My mom was just cheering for them both, while I was obviously bored. For some dumb reason, I decided to walk around the arena while they were playing, not telling any of them beforehand. I quickly got into the deep arena, where the more grown-up people played. It was relatively empty. I did however notice a man sitting at one of the benches. He seemed to be staring at me. It was a different stare though. I can't describe it with words. By then I couldn't see my parents nor my brother anymore. I was starting to get worried, so I started walking backwards hoping to find my parents. However, as soon as I started walking away, that man that was staring at me, stood up and started rapidly walking towards me. This is probably the most terror I ever felt inside me. I was paralyzed. It only took the man around 10 seconds to catch up to me. He crouched down to face me, asking if I was lost. And that's when I recognized him. He sounded just like the Santa Claus from before. I was 100% convinced it was the same man. He asked again if I was lost. I told him I was looking for my parents, and coincidentally enough, he told me he knew where they were and that he'd take me to them. He told me to grab his hand. I don't know why, but I did. This is when everything got worse. He started heading towards the car park through a shortcut in the game arena. This was for employees only. Now I started getting skeptical. I knew my parents wouldn't be in there. What happened next makes me sick just by even thinking about it. When we got to the car park, he pointed at one of the white vans parked nearby. He told me to get in there, and that he would drive me to my parents. Even as an immature 10-year-old, this entire situation seemed pretty sketchy to me. I asked him why and he insisted. He was now walking really fast, basically running, till he got to the van. He slammed open the doors and basically shoved me inside. Now I broke down in tears. I knew this man wasn't going to take me to my parents. But just then, I saw one of the employees enter the car park and shout out my name. Right behind him was my dad, repeatedly shouting my name and yelling at that man to get away from me. This was an absolute miracle. The man took me out of the van and told my dad that this was a misunderstanding, and that it's not what it looks like. As soon as he dropped me, I ran towards my dad and hugged him. The employee that was with my dad called the police, despite the creepy man insisting on not to. When the cops got here, they escorted the creepy man to the police car. It wasn't until 5 years later, that my parents told me who that man was. Apparently, he had been accused by multiple families of being creepy around their children, and even got into jail in 2008 for molesting a child. Looking back at it, I realize how disturbing this was. I'm just happy nothing happened to me that day. I still wonder, what would have that man done to me if that employee didn't help my dad?